The twin suns hung low over the coast, casting a light that shimmered off the water like molten gold. It was the first evening of the sea harvest ceremony, a night brimming with music and the sense of strange, delicious foods drifting through the air. Anders, a traveler, had come from a distant colony to witness this festival he'd only heard about. All the inns were filled with travelers, so a local family of Valak, the planet's native race, had offered Anders their extra room. The Valak were a hauntingly graceful species, with skin that shimmered like polished coral and delicate, translucent tendrils flowing down like seaweed hair. Their faint bioluminescent lines pulsed with the same rhythm as the ocean's waves, and small, curved, obsidian-like horns adorned their heads, decorated with beads and shells that held deep cultural meanings. The youngest of the family, a child named Celis, had taken to guiding him around the town, darting between food stalls and pointing out sights with bright, curious eyes. "Over here," Celis chirped, tugging him toward the food stalls lined with sweet and spicy aromas. They moved from stall to stall, tasting fried sea plants, fragrant broths, and cakes spiced with flavors Anders could hardly name. Children laughed and darted through the crowd, and Anders felt a strange joy at their excitement, almost like being a child himself again. As the sun dipped lower, he noticed a figure moving from house to house, carrying an ancient-looking box carved with wave-like symbols. The family heads took turns drawing slips from the box, each pausing in silent contemplation before tucking the slip into their robes. "What's that?" Anders asked Celis, gesturing toward the box. Celis shrugged, a gesture both innocent and secretive. "It's for the main event. It's tradition for adults." They moved down to the beach, where waves crashed against the shore in a comforting rhythm, and Anders saw children stooping to gather stones scattered along the water's edge. Celis picked up a few and slipped them into a satchel. "What do you need the rocks for?" he asked, curious. "They're important for later," Celis replied softly, almost reverently. Back at the family's small home, he noticed something strange about the family's mother, Sarana. Perhaps it was the way she stood, as if carrying some great weight, or maybe it was her gaze, distant and unblinking, that seemed to pierce through him without really seeing. He couldn't place what was different. The Valak were so unlike humans in ways subtle yet profound, but he felt it, a quiet shadow passing over the room. As night deepened, Anders wandered back into the heart of the festival, alone. He drank from cups offered by friendly strangers, let himself get pulled into the spiraling dances, and laughed at jokes he half understood. Time blurred, and in his light-headed joy, he barely noticed the moonrise casting silver over the sands. On his way back, he took a wrong turn, losing his way amid winding paths and the dim glow of lanterns. Just then, he noticed a procession of lights moving in a line down the beach, glimmering like ghostly fireflies. Curious, he followed them, their rhythm and glow luring him forward. As he drew closer, he saw Sarana leading the procession. She was flanked by two other adults, their faces set with the same solemn intensity he'd noticed earlier. Behind her trailed a group of Valak children, each holding their gathered stones, eyes glistening in the darkness. The adults halted, and Anders watched, entranced, as the children formed a circle around Sarana, placing their stones carefully on the sand before her. The children began a dance, their movements slow and undulating like waves rolling onto the shore. The rhythm of distant drums and the soft hiss of the ocean filled the air, wrapping the scene in an ancient melody. Then, the dance stilled. Silence pressed in. The children, hesitant at first, exchanged glances before reaching down for their stones. One by one, they began to throw them at Sarana. The first stone hit her shoulder with a dull thud, and she staggered. Another caught her cheek, and a thin trickle of dark liquid began to run down her face. Anders watched, horrified, as more stones flew, faster now, pelting her as she stood silent, accepting. "No," he whispered, though no one was there to hear. His heart hammered, his voice strangled by the sheer disbelief that anyone could watch, let alone participate in such a thing. The children's faces were set, almost blank, as if in trance, performing a duty so old it had etched itself into their very beings. Soon she lay still on the ground, the stones forming a rough mound around her. The children, quiet and grim, gathered the stones once more, returning them to the sea. Anders felt hollowed. The festival's bright warmth utterly vanished, leaving only a cold, gnawing realization. This was the Valak tradition, woven deep into their lives, hidden beneath layers of song, dance, and laughter. He turned back, his footsteps heavy, knowing the next day would dawn. The festival would continue, and the sea would accept its harvest.